Hello dear friends and dearest enemies. Ultra Healthy Video Game Nerd is back on the scene, and today I'm almost breaking a rule, you could say. Usually I don't really keep up with latest stuff, even when it is related to retro, just because I really stick to the original games. However, there is something really exciting going on and I must talk about it, and it involves this. It is FX Unit Yuki for the PC Engine or the Turbografx CD. Yes, there is a brand new game for the PC Engine in the year 2008, and it is here in my hands. It has finally arrived. So today I really want to talk about this game. This is not a full-on review. This is just kind of an overview of what the game is, how I feel about it thus far, and really just kind of fanboying it up and praising this guy because this is just amazing. So first, let's just talk about what is FX Unit Yuki. I am kind of assuming that most people who would click on the video with this game in the title know what it is, but if you don't, about a year ago, I discovered this. It is a homebrew game, obviously, developed by a person who was drawing an internet comic about this girl who is a game tester for supposedly Hudson or NEC or some similar company to that, and ends up, wearing some battle suit and going into programs to fight and whatnot. And I guess at some point he had the idea to make it into a video game, and so he crowdfunded it, and it met its funding goal, so he actually did a full-scale 2D platformer, and it has come into fruition. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know about the game during the time when it was being crowdfunded. I found out about it just about 1 year ago, maybe just a little less. So the crowdfunding was already finished. I guess it had already met its mark. But I pre-ordered it as soon as I found out about what it was. So I just got the basic game with just the game. If you were one of the backers, you could probably choose to pledge more money and then get, some kind of special set with all kinds of little extras, a soundtrack CD, maybe some illustrations. I don't know any of that. I just got the game itself, but that's fine for me. I'm just kind of a game player. So let's talk about what kind of game FX Unit Yuki is. It is essentially a 2D platformer where you play as this pink-haired girl, sort of a pink-haired version of Hatsune Miku. And the game has 8 levels. The first level is kind of a training level, and then you go on into the game. Each level in the game is an homage to another older 16-bit game. So for example, the very first level kind of looks like the design of Wonder Boy. And another example would be level 3, which looks a lot like Castlevania. So it's pretty awesome. There are also a couple of shooting levels mixed in there too, so it has multiple play types, which is really impressive. I don't want to spoil all of the games that were referenced in FX Unit Yuki. I think that's part of the fun is playing the game through, is you get to see all the different references that they make, and a couple of them are a little obscure, and that's really awesome. I mean, it's super fanboyish, and I'm down with that. I love that. Now, I know the idea of making games for older systems and then trying to get them physical releases is not completely new. It's sort of a trend, you could almost say. There are a number of groups of people who are doing this. There are new Sega Genesis games that come out from time to time. I've seen maybe one other homebrew on the PC Engine, and I don't think it was ever released on physical media. I think it might have just been passed around as data and you'd play it on an emulator or something like that. So this might be one of the first homebrew games for the PC Engine to be released, full on with a case and artwork like this. But even if it isn't, I'm very confident that it is the most full-scale one. This is a full-scale, legitimate 16-bit platformer. In many ways, it can stand up to other games of the same era. And that is extraordinarily impressive. I mean, that would take a lot of heart and obviously a lot of work also, but just to actually have the idea to do that and take it through to the very end is extraordinarily impressive to me. So I have a huge amount of respect for the person who did this. He calls himself Sarumaru. and that's the guy who does the webcomic. I don't think he's the one who actually did the programming, but you know, he probably had the basic idea for the whole thing. So thanks a lot for taking this all the way to the end and having it end up in my hands. Because there are a lot of Kickstarter and crowdfunded projects that might meet their goal, but don't go all the way. I mean, a lot of things get pushed way, way, way back. For example, there was another game that was being talked about, Paprium, for the Sega Genesis. Looked very large scale, and there's like a full-length commercial for it. I mean, it looks like almost done. And I found out about that about the same time that I found out about FX Unit Yuki. That was just about a year ago, and it's just kind of, you know, disappeared off the radar. I haven't heard anything about it, and I think that's very, very common. So it just makes this project all the much more impressive that it came to fruition the way it did. Now, to be honest, I've only had about 2 sessions with the game itself. I've only, you know, spent probably a total of 2 hours playing the game. It's not enough time really to do a full review, to make complete opinions about, you know, what I like or what I don't like about the game. So FX Unit Yuki for the PC Engine CD. Pretty big news in my world. I think it's a really, really amazing accomplishment for the retro gaming community. If you don't have it, I think you can order it right now from the website. It is fxunityuki.com, and I believe that it is absolutely worth the money, so highly recommend picking it up. There is one more thing I'd like to talk about today. I know one of my claims to fame, if you could say that, is that I own a real copy of Hong Kong 97. It's one of the only ones known about, and I haven't had anything that could play it or attempt to play it. We don't really know if that data is still intact in the disk. It's a floppy disk, apparently. You know, heaven only knows what can happen to the data in a floppy disk in 20 years. But I had mentioned that if I got one of the floppy disk drives for the Super Famicom, that I would do a video showing you guys whether or not the game actually worked. And I have gotten, well, one of these super wild cards. So this is actually one of these floppy drives. You can actually see right here on the side, this is where the floppy disks go in. A bunch of people are probably thinking, oh, you live in Japan, yeah, you should be able to get one, no problem. No, there are none here. It's ridiculously hard to find them in Japan. There's none on Yahoo Auctions, nowhere to be found. So I had to order one from eBay from a seller in the Netherlands, and it's arrived. Now you guys are probably thinking this is the moment of truth. Sadly, there is a chance it got damaged during shipping because I put the game in and it appears to load it, and it only gives me a black screen when the game is supposed to play. Now, I thought that that meant that the data was corrupted in the beginning, but actually when I just tried to play a regular cassette, because, you know, obviously there's a spot in the top where you put the cassettes in, and there's an option to play those, same thing happens. I just get a black screen. I tried a number of games. I checked the ones that are supposedly supposed to work and the ones that aren't. Doesn't look like it works for either one. It does recognize data on the disk, and a load appears to be loading it, so that might be good news. Unfortunately, I still can't play Hong Kong 97, so I'll just switch scenes now. I'm going to show you what happens when I try to load the game. Okay, so I've brought my Super Famicom up on the table here just to show everybody what's going on with this little Super Wildcard situation. So here it is. It fits into the slot, the cartridge slot on your Super Famicom, like such. Now it's in there. You've got to have a regular game on top in order for it to start. So I've got Castlevania 4, great game. Just stick that on there, and hopefully it will power on the first try. Okay, it did. So this is the menu screen. As you can see, this first option that you got on the far left is the system itself. This is what will actually load the data from the floppy disk and play the game. This other option that is the floppy disk itself will just, you can edit the data on the disk right there. So here I have Hong Kong 97. So I'm going to take out the disk and stick it in the machine while it's on. I don't know if I've ever done this. All right, it's in there supposedly. So we are going to select the Super Wildcard machine. This option says play game. Okay, so we're going to choose that. It says insert disk. I think it means it's reading the disk. And it recognizes some kind of data on it. It says 1 SF4000. Okay, so we're going to choose this, and it will theoretically attempt to load the data. As you can see, it's loading. Counts down from 60. So we'll just wait, see what happens. I know what happens. I've seen this before. Still loading. Okay, so now then there's two options to play the game. You can play normal mode or memory mode. Apparently memory mode gives you some extra options with button presses. It'll allow you to do slow motion or to quit the game midway through. Let's just try more normal mode. And we've got a beautiful black screen. And I assure you, I tried memory mode as well. The same thing happened. So it's unfortunate, but it's not working. So the first time I saw this happen, I thought, the data's corrupted. Fuck. Well, not surprising, but disappointing. However, just turn it off. Take the disk out first. I will take that back. Thank you. Put that very precious thing back in there. So now we're going to try to play the cassette. Sometimes it doesn't power on the first try. Okay, there we go. So this option on the far right is to supposedly play regular cassette games. And if you look down at the bottom, it says Akumajo Dracula. It is actually reading the cassette. It knows it's in there. So we will choose play game again. And black screen. That's all. So unfortunately, it doesn't work. The auction, the person who put it up, had pictures of it actually working. It showed it playing on screen, loading game data from discs. They were playing, I think, Super Contra 3, a couple other games. So right now, unfortunately, it's not working. So that's that. Thankfully, it was only $100 with shipping. And all is not lost. It might just be that one little thing came loose during shipping. So, you know, if I could just find somebody with some knowledge about how these things work, I get them to open it up and fix it. I am not going to try. I don't know how any of these goddamn things work. And although it is disappointing, there is still a chance that the data can be played from the disk. It looks like it's recognizing some data in there and even loading it. So all is not lost for Hong Kong 97. So that is about all for this video. If anybody knows anyone in Japan, not shipping this thing over seas again, but if you do know anybody in Japan who either has a disk drive that they would be willing to sell me or lend me, or who has the type of knowledge that it would take to fix one of these things, Japanese or person of any other nationality is fine, do please get in contact with me, because now my appetite has been whet. I'm really, really curious about whether this can be played or not. So as always, thanks a lot for watching. I'm signing off for now. See you next time.